We are underway at round 3 of the Southern XC series, and it was everyone off together, elite, junior and expert, so it does get a little bit confusing. So Will at the front that's absolutely pinging it is actually an elite rider. You're going to have to take my power with a pinch of salt today because the battery was pinging in and out, so I've decided to leave it on there. But everyone that keeps asking for heart rate, I wore my heart rate strap for everyone that keeps asking. But you can see Will's opened up that little bit of a gap in front, so I instantly see that, go round and think I've got to shut that down. So obviously I'm doing more than 0 watts right now, but I said I was going to pace the start of this race. My fitness is not there at the moment to be absolutely whacking it at the start. What am I doing? Absolutely whacking it. I just can't help myself. It's all about full beans, and then coming down here I get absolutely chopped by Adam, and I will let him have this one on the inside there. It was just totally unnecessary, but this is my warning to him if he watches this. Next time I will spank those skinny little legs into next week. I kid you not. My maturity let him off this time. But anyway, I jumped on his back wheel and we closed down the gap to Will, who's actually an elite. So I'm sitting second expert, and this course had some ruts, it had some mud, and this section here was muddy, slippy, and you know when you've just really got to put down that like raw power. Your boy does not have that. It's one thing that I've always struggled with, that raw power. And in the past, the way I've got round that is I've been a lighter weight, which has helped the watts per kilo. You know when you can just feel your legs burning. The heart rate's dropped a little bit. It almost hit like 180. The reason why I don't put my heart rate in is because I don't normally wear the strap. But for reference, I don't know what my max heart rate is. I'm going to guess it's around like 187. So this is like at threshold right now. I've got to maintain this for, what, an hour and a half's race. You can see the mud here. It's just like you've really got to grind to get through it. And it was sapping the legs, killing the lungs. You can see how quickly, it didn't look like much that section, but the heart rate went up like 7 or 8 beats and up to 180 now, and I knew I was struggling already. And I was just thinking to myself, there's a drag in a bit that's got a bit of wind, and to be on someone's wheel and in the front group is going to be so important. So I was probably going a touch deeper than I should have been through this section, just to make sure that when we got to the long drag I had a wheel to suck. It was as simple as that. It was a windy day. Like you can see the wheel, like Adam in front, wheel going left, right and centre, just because it was, these corners were so slippy in the mud. But you can see, so this section here was all like single track, really good. There was no real place to overtake, and to be honest, I didn't have the legs to overtake anyway. But I felt like, I wasn't sure, I felt like the boys were toying with me a bit, and I didn't feel like they were at full gas, because you know when you're going along and you think, it normally feels a little bit harder than this. I mean, it was hurting, but a couple of weeks ago when I got absolutely dispatched at Margam, it felt way harder. I don't know if that's just because going up to national level, there's more hitters, I guess, I don't know. But we came through this section and I managed to cling on, and I think there was about a group of 5 of us now all going for it, and you can see the little accelerations out the corners. They all add up and sting the legs a bit. But yeah, there was 5 of us in this front group. So there was Will, Adam, me, there was an army lad, I think it's called Max, and then George was just dangling off the back, but he is notoriously a bit of a slower starter, but once he gets going, boy, has the lad got some power, which you'll see in a minute. But yeah, so we navigate through this single track section. In just a minute we're going to come out onto the long drag, and it's slightly uphill as well, which you can't tell from the camera. A little bit of wind there, so you just had to be a wheel sucker, and I was on the wheel sucking train. I just jumped on the back of these boys and held on for dear life. Your boy was using all of his berries just to go with it. And that's the thing with XC racing. Although people are saying, oh, maybe start slower and build into it, the problem is these lads at this level, the speed never drops off, and notoriously I want to go there to win. So that's the thing, it's so easy to say, oh, before the race I was even saying, this is the bit here, the long drag, you got to just jump on a wheel. So already I've let the wheel go a bit. I'm having to put a little bit of a dig in to shut it down, just so I'm getting that drafting benefit. But yeah, it's like, it's in everyone's nature to want to win these races, be at the pointy end, and the pace isn't going to slow. This pace that they go out on lap 1, a lot of these lads can hold it for the full 90 minutes. So you've got to go with it, because if I don't go with it, I know I'm never going to be able to make that time back up. I apologise about the water on the screen, I do get it. But yeah, I think it's just in a second that Adam goes to the front and starts putting the pressure on. And he, spoiler alert, if you watch the last video, he did win the race. So the lad in front of me with the ridiculous aero socks and the skinny legs does win the race. But he goes round, starts putting the pressure on, and it was a leg burner. It put me in a hole that I just couldn't recover from. And you can see now heart rate's 180. I can't remember what I maxed out, maybe 184 in this race, something like that. So I am on the limit right now. This is red lined, and I'm just thinking, I'm saying to myself all the time, you've got to go with it, because you're in the group now. You've got to just suffer and see how long you can hold on for. And I never know how long I'm holding on for. But it was like, I don't think Adam fully attacked. It was just seated power. He's got good watts per kilo because he's a light lad, and he just put the hurt on down here. And you can see my heart rate, 181. Spicy meatballs, hanging on for dear life. I mean, we're not getting a very good view of it here because we've just got Will's backside. But look, you can see that acceleration now. It's so annoying that the power meter wasn't working, because it really did sting the legs going up here. Adam was just putting the pressure on, and you can see Will's out the saddle, giving it beans. Then Adam goes, and you're like, you've got to react to it. And this bit here, you just had to dig in. It was uphill, it hits that loamy section, and it's savage. And he does start to open up a bit of a gap, and I think Will even thought, like, I don't think he could go with it. Look, you can see that gap's opened up, and he is trying with absolutely everything he's got, and heart rate just maxed out right there, eyes jumping out of my head. And he has opened up a gap, but it does get shut down in a minute. It was ferocious. Your boy was hanging on. So coming into the next bit of single track downhill section, you can see we've pretty much shut that gap down that Adam got. It was absolutely nothing now. It's like a bike length. So we shut it down. I don't know if he eased off or the pace was lifted, but this section here was super, super tricky. You had to be in the right gear to get up into that right hander, into the right gear. I had an absolute shocker right at a time when you just don't need it. I hit that little stump, foot out, and then you're on the back foot chasing again, and mistakes like that at this level just get punished every time, because the riders in front are rarely making mistakes, and then as soon as that gap opens, you're then chasing, putting an effort in you don't want to. And it was at a section of the course where I know the two lads in front were going to be stronger than me up this climb, and I was just like, I've got to just send it now and go to get back on. I managed to get back on Will's wheel, but if you look in front, Adam went again. He kicked again up the climb. It was pretty impressive, but none of us, we couldn't go with it. But it does get shut down again, you'll be pleased to know. So the action is not over yet. We come into this next section, down into the first, like, I think the other bit might have been an AB line, but this next bit's an AB line, and you can see the gap he's opened up now. That's a good sort of 10-second gap he's put into us just on that climb. And well, I think everyone was suffering a bit now and thinking, oh God, we've still got, what, an hour and 20 of this, and it is full beans. But he had gone, you could see round the corner, signed, sealed, delivered, dispatched us. I do not know how we brought this back, I'm not gonna lie, but we managed to shut that gap back down. These corners were super difficult. You had to make sure you're in the right gear, accelerate out. The power you had to put down, it's so annoying not being able to see it. I need to sort out my power meter. But we came out onto the tough main drag that had a strong headwind, and you can see Will shutting the gap down to Adam, and we've pretty much he's absolutely tanked it to close it down. And he does get back on his wheel, but as soon as he gets back on the wheel, I think Adam realises that he doesn't want to be giving anyone a draft. So he looks round, and then I think he goes again. He starts swinging over, doing the old roadie thing, trying to get everyone off his wheel. And then he puts this little dig in just there. And it was that snap decision, got everyone off his wheel again. And then I remember Will looked at me and said, well, you can close that down. He's not even in my race. So I was like, absolute nightmare. So we were then back chasing again, literally just got back on and he attacked again, but this bit was super slippy down here and Adam absolutely sent it, so fair play to him, but it was slip and slide down this section. And I knew again, it was now my job to shut that gap down. But I tried my best to close it down. I managed to limit the damage to, you can see what the gap is here, about 4 or 5 seconds. But we were at heart rate, look, peak, 185. That was the max for the race, trying to shut this gap down. So I was going into places I couldn't recover from. I came out onto this drag and I remember pulling over and just thinking, I need to let someone pass me here because I cannot shut that down, and I needed a wheel to suck. I was just in an absolute hurt box. And I think in a second, Max, the army rider, comes round and starts trying to shut it down here. So he looks over as well, and I'm just like, right, I've got to jump on, go with this. And just like that, we were back in a group of 5. So all 5 of us were together still. And then it was as if every time it got together, it was another attack would come. Every time it got shut down, another attack. And that is what it's like at the pointy end. The boys are just so fit and strong, and you've got to be able to deal with that. So sometimes it doesn't even look like much. It will just be like an increase in pace at the wrong time when you're already suffering, if that makes sense. It doesn't always look like this monumental attack out of the saddle. Someone will just start absolutely ripping it through the bit of single track, and all of a sudden you're on the back foot chasing again, absolutely legs screaming at you. And you can just see here they've started to distance me, and Max has managed to shut it down and I didn't quite manage to, and I was working my absolute backside off. Yet again, this was not the pacing strategy I said I was going to go for, but sometimes you got to just race with your heart, as they say. I think that's the saying, I don't know. I tried to anyway. But this next section, it starts to kick uphill, and this is when it all went kaput. The engine lights went out, and I'd gone too deep, and I knew I needed to back off. I couldn't go with the surge. I managed to shut it down through this like muddy section, but it comes out onto a little like gravel road just here, and I remember having to peel off and let someone fill in the gap, and I think Will comes round and fills in the gap for me. It absolutely saves the day just here, because I was like, it's little things like that when you're suffering, you've got to be able to keep pushing on the pedals over the top of the little climb. But I knew another climb was coming up, this section here. It doesn't look like much, but the mud really added to how difficult it was. But we were all together, and I think George was just a couple of bike lengths behind, and this climb here was the hardest climb of the course, I thought. It's surprising how hilly this course was. They were all sort of like short, punchy climbs, but like they weren't crazy steep, but they were a real sting in the legs for sure. So I was just clinging on at this point, thinking, if I can get round a lap, maybe the pace will ease. But boy, oh boy, was I wrong, because the next big attack came, and I couldn't cover it. It's as simple as that. So I'm clinging on as it was here, and as we come into the next section, it starts to ramp more up the climb, and it's more of like a little single track climb before we hit the finish line. And this is when the attacks started to come. So we're all together into this section, and it was this first lap was just relentless. But you've got to, like, sometimes I always try and tell myself when I'm going round, you've got to give it that extra 10 seconds, and that 10 seconds I just don't have at the moment, the extra 10 seconds to go with it when the attacks do come. So this next corner is when it just goes absolutely thermonuclear. Out of here, it gets steep, they all start absolutely ripping it, and your boy goes, that is it, signed, sealed, delivered, dispatched. I tried my best, but I was just like, I just cannot go with that. And I remember getting to this top section, and I saw George was behind me, and I thought, just jump on his wheel as soon as he comes round, get on his wheel, because he'll close that gap down. He's super, super strong. And he did close it down, but as soon as he came round, I had absolutely no berries to go with him. So he comes round here, and I was like, jump on, get a tow, and honestly, within 10 seconds, look, he had dispatched me. The worst thing was, the gap wasn't actually that big, so you can see coming into the downhill, it was literally like, I was just there, but I just couldn't get back on it. Watching it back now, and I remember in the time, I was like, just one effort, but when your heart rate's already at 181, and you haven't got a lot more to go, you can't give that one effort. And I knew as soon as we came out onto this long drag, look, they were gone. You can just about see in the distance. I was absolutely Shell City right now. And that was basically a wrap on the race. I literally went into survival mode to get to the end. I kept on the pedals, gave it the beans, but that first lap, it's a confidence booster though, to know that I can go with it. So there's still some work to do. Maybe I can get back to that pointy end, but I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.